Okay, grade 12. This is your last lesson for chapter 10, and this is a possible essay question. I know it's hard to believe, it's very, very little information, but if you look at your exam guideline, it says discuss in detail the regional development in South Africa in terms of the following benchmark criteria. Okay, and you'll see in that table in your book, you've got all of this. Okay, so although it looks like very, very little information, it is a possible essay question. It is highly unlikely that this will be the essay question that they ask this year. Remember, I did give you on your breakdown the fact that this essay question was the essay, or the essay question last year came from chapter 10. It wasn't this one, it was the other one. But it's highly unlikely that they will use an essay from chapter 10 2 years in a row. I'm not saying impossible, I'm saying highly unlikely. All right, so it's not off the cards completely, but because it is an identified essay question, if it's not going to be there as an essay question, obviously they can use this for an 8-mark discuss question. All right, or they can incorporate into a data response question. All right, so I would suggest that you look at this very nicely. I am also shortly going to send you essays, because they have sent us worked out essays. They didn't send it to us last year, it was sent in a previous year. But I'm going to upload that for you on Teams, and I will send it over the WhatsApp groups as well for all 4 of the modules. So you can obviously look and see, how they have approached this essay and where you can add, what you can add to this information. Okay. So the topic here is best practice for regional development. So what is the benchmark criteria? What are the criteria, the principles that we are going to measure our policies against to see if it is, how favorably it compares to international best practice? All right. So first of all, the principles are these ones in the first column. Okay, free market orientation, competitiveness, sustainability, good governance, provision of resources, investing in social capital, integration, partnerships, and then decentralization. These are the principles. Okay, and then what do they mean? All right, so for international best practice, free market orientation, this means that government intervention must be kept to a minimum. Mostly the market mechanism should be allowed to operate on its own, because generally speaking, the market mechanism will allow for efficient resource allocation. So basically what this means is we should leave the market. Resources should be allocated according to the market mechanism, demand and supply, and there should be as little as possible government intervention. Okay, obviously in terms of prices, minimum prices, maximum prices, we should limit that. In terms of competitiveness, we said before as well, any industries that is established as a result of our policies, of our interventions, must be competitive in its own right. We said that once those industries have been established, they must be sustainable, they must be competitive on their own, they should not depend on any financial support from the government, they should not depend on any kind of protection, import taxes, import quotas from the government. Once they are established, they should function on their own. They should compete in the market on their own without any kind of assistance from the government. The third principle is sustainability. Okay, what this means is that the region, when we look at regional development, the region that we are focused on, the area, the underdeveloped area that we are focusing on, should support its own development, and the natural resources and the human resources from that region should be used so that we can create employment for the people in that region, and so that we can achieve high levels of development. Obviously, it goes hand in hand with high living standards. So sustainability, it means that once we've established a business in a particular area, we mustn't get workers from a different area to now come and work here. If the workers in this undeveloped area is unskilled, we should train them. We should upskill them. But industries that are established in these identified areas should make use of local labor, train them if you need to, local resources. So they should find their resources in the local area so that other industries in this area can be stimulated as well, and indirectly that will stimulate more jobs as well. That is sustainable. So the growth in a particular industry will spill over into another industry. All right, for example, if I start a restaurant, right, or I start producing clothing, okay, I should source my workers from the local area. I should source my textiles from the local area. I shouldn't import my textiles from Gauteng or another country or whatever. I should make use of the resources that is available in my own area. If I support other business in my area, they can grow as well. All right, so it's a growth point that spills over into other industries as well. Good governance means that the strategies, the policies that we use to stimulate industrial development should be managed properly. There shouldn't be any sign of corruption. All right. So the policy there is transparency and accountability, okay, to make sure that there's proper control, right? So good governance means that there shouldn't be any corruption. Financial control, the financial statements is transparent. People should know in the region this is how much money was allocated for industrial development. This is exactly how the money was spent. The money was actually spent on industrial development and not buying a new car for the minister, etc. All right. So people, the Department of Trade and Industry should be held accountable for their policies. Their policies should reach their objectives. They should be effective, reach their goals, and financially that should be managed properly, free from corruption, which means the money should go where the money was intended to go. All right. The provision of resources. Okay, so obviously where resources are lacking in certain areas, okay, for example, infrastructure. Remember we said that no business in its right mind will go and establish itself in an underdeveloped area unless the infrastructure is provided. So in order to create industrial development in some of these areas, it might be necessary for the government to provide the resources that is needed. The government should invest in the transport infrastructure, the energy infrastructure, the sanitation, the water provision in that resource poor area to encourage industrial development. Because once the infrastructure is there, businesses will be willing to establish there. No infrastructure means no industrial development, right? So once we've identified an undeveloped area, the infrastructure should be provided there before we even think about industrial development. Okay, investment in social capital. Okay, obviously we said that investment in education and training is vital. Okay, healthcare, we can add to that also. Remember, a qualified worker, an educated worker, a skilled worker is more productive than an unskilled worker. So we should invest in upskilling people. Okay, we cannot have industrial development. We remember labor absorbing, but we want to move towards a knowledge-based economy. So we need to improve the skills and the education of the workers. Healthcare also very, very important because healthy workers are more productive than sick workers. Okay, so we want a healthy, productive workforce, and therefore our social infrastructure needs to work properly. All right, in terms of integration, this means that any benefits that is gained in one part of a region should spill over to other industries and other areas as well. Okay, that is what I also explained earlier, when I said we source our stuff from local areas. So if I establish a business, I start, for example, a canning factory. Okay, I'm starting a canning factory. Basically, when I'm canning when I'm getting the vegetables to can or the fruit to can, I need to source those raw materials. I need to buy the fruit from a fruit farmer in the same area, so that when I buy from him, then obviously he gets an income. He can expand his own business. He can employ more people. So any development in my canning business is going to spill over into the farming business, because the bigger my business is getting, the more fruit I need to can because I'm selling more stuff. The more fruit I'm going to buy from the farmer, and his business can expand as well. So it should work like that. That's the whole idea with regional development, is to create this growth point. We invest a whole bunch of money in an area. We hope that the investment in this area will create expansion, will create industrial development, and that growth and development will spill over into other industries in the area and eventually spill over into the areas next door as well. All right, second last one in terms of partnerships. Okay, obviously development is the responsibility of many, many different people. Okay, so all sectors of government should be involved in this. Okay, remember at regional development, industrial development falls under the Department of Trade and Industry. That is a government department, right? So it has to be coordinated basically between central government, provincial government, and local government, as well as your civil society, your people, your special interest groups like trade unions, your NGOs, non-government organizations, the private sector. Remember, the whole idea with the PPPs is that the investment for industrial development would come from the private sector. The government gives the infrastructure, yes, but it's a partnership, it's cooperation basically between the government and the private sector. All right, and then lastly, decentralization is what we want, okay? Remember, centralization means that all economic activities are concentrated in particular areas. We don't want that. We want economic activities to be spread equally around the country. So the whole process should be decentralized. All right. So decentralization means that also the control of the policy, the control of the strategy, the implementation of the strategy should not happen at national level. Okay. It is there to meet the needs of the local community. So regional development should be the responsibility of local authorities, provincial and local authorities. It should not be the responsibility of national government. It is a local issue that should be addressed by local authorities.